Hello, my name is John Brink. We are podcasting from beautiful Prince George, Northern British Columbia today, and it's a brisk day in Prince George. It's probably around 15, 20 below. It's in early mid-December actually, and for all of you that are watching from around the world, Prince George, beautiful place in the wintertime in particular. It sometimes gets nippy here, up to 30, 40 below, sometimes, not very often now, but it used to. And we have a special guest today. Her name is Judy Russell, and she is not only a special guest, she is also a friend. Welcome to the show, Judy.
Oh, thank you, John. It's really nice to be here. What a beautiful setting.
You like it?
I love it. Especially, I love the fact that you can see almost the whole place. It's fantastic.
And on downtown Prince George, on George Street, which used to be a questionable area, but now it's becoming quite nice, actually. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about in particular today is you have a dance studio, the Enchainement.
Yeah, the very good Enchainement.
Enchainement.
Yeah,
and help me understanding.
Enchainement
is French.
It is. I'm primarily trained to be a ballet teacher.
Right.
I'm what I would term a cradle ballet teacher because my mom also had a dance studio back in Alberta.
Okay.
In the early in Calgary.
Okay. In
the early 50s, believe it or not.
Okay.
And so that was, of course, well before I was born.
Right. Obviously.
And anyway, so basically. I was raised speaking the words, then speaking the language of classical ballet.
Yeah.
And classical ballet didn't actually originate in France. It actually originated more in Italy. Some people think it's Russia, but you know, it was happening all around Europe at the time. And anyway, so what did happen, however, was King Henry, believe it or not, King Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, made the first L'École du Danse, and which is the first school of dancing. So, therefore, the first curriculum was written in French.
That was in Paris.
In Paris. Hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
So it stayed. So the word enchaînement means a chaining or a linking of steps. And when I was young, in my sort of 19, 20 years, when I was beginning the school, I thought it would be a really interesting.
Was that in 1979?
Yes.
Yeah.
79
okay.
80, good for you. And I really thought it was a beautiful word. And we use that word in ballet to describe any small collection of dance steps.
Now, if they say linking, are they talking about a person using the steps of ballet to link, or does it apply to others in combination?
I think it applies to other things as well.
Yeah.
I think you can look at that and define it different ways. I felt like it could translate to a linking of steps, as in steps of education, steps of learning, steps of growth.
Yeah.
Not just dance steps.
Exactly.
Right? So, but a chain means it goes together.
Yeah.
And usually links and stays together. That's the.
And it looks beautiful if it is done right.
That's right.
Hence it's
so
popular, right?
Enchainement. Yep. So we teach enchainement non-stop in the ballet class.
Yeah.
And so that's why I called it that. And ever since, I mean, for some reason I had this big thing about not wanting my name there. I only wanted it to be Enchainement Dance Center. And I didn't ever want it to be Miss Judy's School of Dance. You know, I just didn't want that. I think because I always felt the bigger picture was more important. I always knew, so I didn't just start it, I started the company as Enchainement Productions, Inc., and I started
When?
it was we incorporated in 1984.
Yeah, but you started all of this much earlier, you know, because I remember I've known you and Bill, you know, for a long time, and supported you for a long
Yes,
time. As
you certainly have.
And I remember my kids who are now in their 40s,
Yes.
starting there, and us going there, seeing them on the stage, and you know, and you know, so I've seen you through all the stages, and then even when you bought that property that now is your studio, you know, was a big step for you because it was a unique piece of property, but it must have been a bit of a challenge.
It has all been a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when you think of it, and I feel so fortunate because a large dance studio-based production company in a smallish city in central interior British Columbia, I will never ever forget that my first moves as a business person in my early 20s was to seek out support and help and go through some of the programs that were available at the time. And the caseworker, we'll call it, has told me that a business like I wanted would never ever be successful in Prince George.
Yeah.
I was told that in no uncertain terms.
It must have been the same banker that I had when
Probably.
I started.
Probably. So, you know, I don't know whether to say, you know, or thank you. And I think I would prefer to say thank you, because by delivering that challenge to me, it made me dig deep and say, no, I know that the city needs what we have to offer, and I'm gonna prove you wrong.
On the other hand, Judy, in all fairness, there are not many people like you, right?
Well,
so, and I'm not trying to make you
I would
feel
hope
good.
not.
No, but I mean, in all fairness, that one through all the ups and downs and all the challenges that go with it, which are many, and you know, for me, I grew up in Holland, and the arts and all of that is very much part of society there.
We had to build that here. We
Here,
had to build
respectfully, and I love Prince George. Been here for 56 years, and it's a boom town. When I came here in the mid 60s, and obviously understanding a town like this, it was not about going to ballet studios or going to entertainment that included ballet. It was more down here on George Street, going to the bars.
Yes, absolutely.
And I said it respectfully. So we have come a long way since. You had a lot to do with that.
Well, I think it was all about giving people opportunity.
Yeah.
And if you give that opportunity in a way that it's delivered with respect and inclusion, and try to leave any, I mean, how am I trying to say this? I'm trying to make it accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
And understandable. Trying not to make it so far into that world of the arts.
Yeah.
That people can't connect
remove
to it.
The myth, right?
It has to be something that people connect
yeah,
to.
and want to do, right? And then through you know, boys, girls, and you know, your shows are so immensely unique. Nutcracker in particular, you know, that you know, they were always sold out and packed, and everybody kind of looked forward to them, and even
well, we did have to build that, and you know, the people that took a chance on me a long time ago, I'll never forget having to fight to get the collaboration going with the Prince George Symphony Orchestra, because there was a lot of disbelief that we could live up to their professional standards. And I really felt again that I needed to throw down the sword and ask them, how can you make sure that you live up to my professional standards? And then with that became an excellent moment where we became fast friends.
Yeah, and then that then being said is another unique part of Prince George, because we were, some of the main sponsors for the symphony orchestra here, because that again is unique for a city like Prince George.
Completely.
To have their own symphony, and we had to sponsor the the annual car raffle a number of times, because which was the key fundraiser, and but somehow it survived, and then not only did it survive, it's prospered in the sense of that very popular, and then in combination with what you do, it creates that special part of Prince George. Now, the other thing that I've been wondering about and kind of looking forward to our interview is that your next show of the Nutcracker is around the corner here within the next week or so, and you're right now already deeply into it. You barely had the time to do the podcast because you've been so busy. Is that, how has all of this been affected by COVID?
Oh, well, that is the $1 million question, John. I feel like in some ways the fact that this is the 30th anniversary show, and that we have been given this tiny window of opportunity to present this style of thing, it feels all a little surreal. And it feels like it's an extremely important moment in time. I think we will all look back on this and think, wow, it's just amazing that we got that to happen.
Yeah.
Because from all accounts, around the corner in January is an even heavier lockdown with the Omicron situation. And I don't want to look forward and think negatively about what's coming. I am just incredibly relieved to have been given this opportunity. And like I said to you, 2 weeks ago, I was in a situation where I may have to say no, and that was going to affect so many people negatively.
And
that
the
it
reason
was really
was
painful.
And
because there has been a misunderstanding about the safety of what live entertainment is all about. So we, the live entertainment producers, were kept to 50 people within an audience, and it didn't matter what size of a venue.
But that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Is
that did it get sorted out, or what happened?
Yes, there was a lot of conversation.
Okay.
A lot of letter writing, a lot of COVID protocols put in place with directives of how we can accomplish this safely.
Right.
And people like Shirley Bond actually just working her darndest to get the ear of the people that needed to hear our concerns. And I think that there were a great many people like Shirley speaking for the inequity in the arts. And finally it was heard, and we were sorted out to a lesser or greater degree. What people need to understand is that still our area are the only ones at 50% in all of the country. Everyone else is at 100%.
Why? Yeah, because that has an effect on your show in terms of the viability or the cost of it for sure. Mm-hmm. And, and then it must also be difficult in terms of attracting sponsors.
Yes.
For your
because
magazines.
That's right.
Because what you say is that, okay, when and how often and how many people will read the money I invest in this and all of that, and if the answer is I don't know, that's not good.
No, it's not good.
So it was then resolved to 50%.
And then I had to go out and sell the program and make sure that people did know that this was going to be a really important program. However, it would be 2,000 people as opposed to 4,000 people.
Yeah, and how did that go?
Pretty well. People like yourself stepped up.
We got a page.
Yes, you did, and I'm so thankful. Not perhaps as well as I could have hoped, but really solidly people who do support us and have done so for a long time are still right there doing that. Dan and Cindy Marcotte are always right there, making sure that we survive. And Dr. Tessa von der Steinen, a dentist in town, who grew up at the studio and has a huge love for it, and has a child dancing in the Nutcracker. And
beautiful.
There are many people who have stepped forward and continue to support, and I am so thankful.
So is it now a go for sure?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And we are into the theater today for the first time. So we open in 3 days.
Which venue? Which
Faneuil Hall. It's the only one we have.
Yeah.
There is no other venue.
Yeah. And then so how many seats do you have?
We're allowed to sell 394 of 778 seats.
Okay, and how many have you sold so far?
1,920.
So you have how many more to go?
Approximately 50. 50.
That's all?
That's all.
You're going to be totally sold out.
Sold out by the end of today, I would imagine.
No question about that.
No.
So that's great.
That is great.
Yeah. So the so the Nutcracker again this year, as it has been for the last 30 years, will be unique. I'm always so impressed, Judy, because I've virtually gone to every one of them when our kids were here, and then a lot of other times, obviously, is that the quality and the so professionally done, and even the dancers that are involved. Some of them have gone on to this as a career, right?
Well,
Tell me a little bit about that.
What's interesting is when I first choreographed it 30 years ago, I choreographed it on a 14-year-old young lady by the name of Juanita Valancourt. And her prince was a 15-year-old young man by the name of Chris Larson, both of whom grew up in the studio. But by the time they were that age, Chris had moved on and gone to the National Ballet School of Canada in Toronto. So he came home for the summer, and we worked for 1 month, sort of tooth and nail, sweating, super hot summer in the studio, and choreographed the whole ballet, because then he had to go back to Toronto. And then we were able to fly him home for Thanksgiving to do a little tweak and work super hard with the whole cast. And that happened 2 years in a row. And then he could no longer, because he was becoming a professional, and he had to stay in Toronto and do the national version of Nutcracker,
right,
of which he has some excellent stories of him being inside Monsieur Bonhomme, and that he had to be instead of a prince, now he's a giant snowman.
Yeah. The role changed.
Yeah. But anyway, that was the start of his career, and it was really interesting. And from then, we sort of moved along And we had to hire princes for a while because it took a while for us to grow our own.
Yeah.
And once we had done so, we were and usually for a young man, they end up having to leave the city early to go to join a company school.
Yeah.
So we would bring them back and they would perform, and we'd keep growing our Claras and everybody, and there's been very few hired princes that weren't connected to the studio already.
Right.
However, those that did come in shared so much with us and gave us so much in terms of what we needed to do to become more professional about how we did everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes the hired prince would come in and we'd be like, he's not quite as good as I would have hoped.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we have been very, very lucky. One time we had a Russian prince come in that had been trained at the Kirov, and he was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This is 1997.
Yeah.
But he'd fallen on some hard times. His immigration to Canada didn't work out so well. He had some problems, and so when I was looking for a prince, I called a friend in Montreal who her name is Suzanne Tumine, and she was a ballet mistress for Les Ballets Superior. And so she said, I have this amazing young man here, but he's lost.
He's what?
He's lost.
Oh.
He's lost his way. He doesn't know what he wants to be any longer. And this whole experience of emigrating to Canada and trying to continue on, and his disappointments. And she said, I think if you can handle it, I think you would be very good for him. So we brought him to Prince George, which of course was quite a lot like Russia.
Yeah, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he needed work done on his teeth. He needed work done on his hair. He needed to be fed proper food.
A bit of an overall.
He needed some support. He needed a family to support him.
Yeah.
To get him back to being confident and strong.
Yeah.
And that happened.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing thing. It was even more amazing for my young sons, who at the time were, teenagers, and Jonathan, I think, was around 11, and that would be right. No, he was probably 9 years old. So they learned a great deal about the world and how they didn't want to end up, and also the artistry that he delivered and that he shared with us was so inspirational that people like the young man that is going to play the prince this time around have grown from greatly.
Wow.
Right? It was an amazing time.
And
there's been lots of those sort of magic moments, but that was one quite exceptional. His name is Igor Milosrdov.
He's still here then?
No, he went back to Montreal and has been all over Canada. But I think he is a little bit settled now, and actually I think he finally became a daddy and teaches, and I hope he's well.
Yeah. So now you have 2 sons?
3
sons. Now some of them I know are involved.
Andrew, Matthew, and Jonathan.
Right.
They have all been involved heavily over there. My eldest son just turned 40 last month.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't. Yes, I was a child bride for sure.
Yeah.
not really, but...
So what are they doing then?
Well, Andrew stepped aside this year. He has played Drosselmeyer for the last several productions. It was just the right time. COVID has not been easy for him.
Yeah.
He works for TELUS.
Okay.
And he's working from home all of the time, and
Yeah.
that's pretty hard on people.
Yeah.
He was involved, all three boys were the leads in Beauty and the Beast 2 years ago,
Yeah.
which was a wonderful, wonderful show.
Yeah,
and
I
I couldn't
remember
be
that.
a prouder mummy.
Yeah.
You know, Bill is a very, very talented man, Mr. Bill Russell. If Bill can't fix it, it can't be fixed.
Yeah.
He is also a fantastic performer.
Yeah.
So the boys couldn't help themselves, really.
Yeah.
So Andrew was the one that was going to be a ballet dancer, and he went off and started his life with that, and then ended up for a while as a death metal singer in a touring death metal band. So some people think, ballet dancer, death metal artist, really?
Yeah.
But there's a certain thread back there. There's
Yeah.
a very, very strong sort of gothic sort
Okay.
of, you know. Then Matthew, he prefers to be known as Matt, has been the manager for me of the Prince George Playhouse,
Okay.
and the manager of Central Interior Tickets
Yeah.
for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
He did go off and do quite a lot with musical theater, and was in several professional shows.
Yeah.
But then decided he wanted to be a family man.
Right.
So and of course, COVID forced us I had to lay him off. I had to close the Playhouse
Yeah.
of our contract.
Yeah.
And without the Playhouse, we couldn't have the Central Interior Tickets either.
Right, right.
So his job disappeared. And he's very talented and is a driven sort of person. So he found himself his way, and is now actually working for the city of Prince George.
Interesting.
Yes.
So what does he do?
In the
then?
special events division, of
yeah.
course.
Oh,
possibly
how appropriate.
Possibly ending up managing the Prince George Playhouse.
Yeah.
But that's, who knows?
Yeah,
It's just
who
a
knows,
joke
yeah.
in our family right now.
Right.
But he's working with all those wonderful people, Glenn Mickelson, Andy Beasley, who has just joined back up. I mean, Andy Beasley has watched Matthew grow up. I mean,
Yeah.
Andy was the lead in 1995 in Superstore, and
amazing,
an
performance.
amazing talent. And
Yeah.
Matt was a 12-year-old little boy
Can you
in the
imagine?
chorus,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he's there. And then Jonathan so right now, Matt and his wife Anna, who just was the assistant director and the choreographer for Theatre Northwest's the Marvelous Wonderettes,
Right.
have their 3 little ones, and all 5 of them are in the party scene.
Yeah.
So Matt
Nice.
said to me, Mom, I want my whole family. And I said, yes, I want them too. And then Jonathan, he works side by side with Bill. Basically, he has taken over Russell Audiovisual.
Yeah.
And Bill is semi-retired.
Yeah.
And so John's footprint is large in all of the things that we did, that we do.
Yeah.
Matthew played Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, and Jonathan played the Beast, and they were spectacular.
Yeah.
But they are good at stepping back and doing things that are needing to be done.
Yeah.
And then stepping forward into the limelight when it's the right thing for them.
Yeah.
They don't need to be the stars all the time.
Right. It's kind of unique, actually, in your family, and obviously I've watched them and I've known them, and more you and Bill, and to see them evolve and being so involved, so rewarding, right?
It is so rewarding.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's tough. I don't think I would want to be the child of Bill and Judy Russell, or worse yet, the daughter-in-law, or excuse me. we have done so much that it's a little bit tough sometimes, I think.
Well, yeah.
Because I feel that our children and our children by marriage feel a lot of pressure sometimes to do the things that we have done, and that's not fair. They need to be able to do the things that they want to do as well.
Yeah.
You know, if they can keep a little bit of our light burning, that would be great.
Yeah.
And really, I know that they really would like us to just be grandparents.
Yeah.
And that's fair too.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I'm sure they love you and they care about
Oh,
you.
yes.
And to me, the same thing has happened. I'm a go guy, and and that creates pressure on all kinds of other people around me. But you all care about me and they
That's
love
right.
me, and that's who I am.
That's exactly true.
And it has been rewarding to them by example. The other thing is Bill. I remember still that he was dancing, and
He started dancing when he was 30.
Yeah.
So Bill grew up in Quesnel, and he got really involved in theater at high school.
Yeah.
And he played lots of lead roles. He's very, very talented. He is a natural actor, a natural singer, a natural mover.
Yeah.
But he was all about media at that time, politics, media.
Yeah.
He, I think, at one point really wanted to be in high-end politics.
Yeah.
But theater is really, really rewarding.
Yeah.
And if you become addicted, it can be very, very hard to get out of. And to my knowledge, other than financial issues, there's no rehab for actors.
Yeah, but they create the passion, right? So once you have the passion, then every day, most of the times, when you get up, you look forward to doing what you love to do, and that's what it is all about. That makes you good at what you do, and and obviously you have it around you in abundance. Now with Bill, every so often I still see him where I'm speaking someplace and I look at where the sound is going. Oh, Bill, it's all okay.
It's all
then.
good. It's all good.
That type of a thing. Yeah.
Well, he was in radio for 25 years, believe it or not.
Yeah,
it was a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, he spent, I think, the last 5 years as a part-time radio personality, but he did everything. And I really believe that when we started out our lives together, it was supposed to be him.
Yeah.
He was the one that was supposed to go on to a big career in a large major center.
Yeah.
And he's so talented.
Yeah.
However, the dance studio took off.
Yeah.
And he was so proud of that he stepped in behind me and supported me and pushed.
Yeah, but then that made you both successful, right? So because the one without the other would not have been the same. It would not have
happened, no.
So the one that was more recognized up front was maybe you, and but we always knew that Bill was there as a very, very important
totally
part.
was. Yeah. And he stepped into his first ballet class when he was 30 years old.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
He did a lot.
Where did you guys meet?
We both worked at the radio station.
At which one? Where?
At CJCI.
FM
FM 94.
Yeah.
So, where I had decided that I wasn't going to do this as a career.
Yeah.
Again, it's that legacy thing. My mom was a dance teacher and a musical theater director, choreographer, and my dad was a music. It was, and I was like, well, that's what they did. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I want to do something different. I want to be different. So I went back to B.C.I.T. to do the broadcast journalism program.
Yeah.
And came back here and went to work at the radio station and realized that I was not very good at it.
Yeah.
Well, I was just too young. Too young.
Yeah.
It would be a different thing today for sure.
Yeah.
However, I was regularly reading news and sports on my not so friendly person's show, Mr. Bill Russell's show, and I kept screwing up badly. He hated the fact that he hated it the minute he saw me walking into that soundproof room. He was like, "Oh no, not her again." Right? And it wasn't until he went on vacation, because he's a very, very straight as an arrow sort of person. So there was no fraternizing with the work cohorts.
Yeah.
Until we met at a party when he was on a vacation and had a really interesting 4 or 5 hour long conversation.
Yeah.
Where we realized that we were completely aligned in almost everything that we thought about the world and the way it should be.
Everything happens for a reason, right?
It does.
Yeah.
I had to endure that crap just to meet him.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. So if you really look now at, and you've been here for a long time as I have, and especially in an area like this, Prince George, Northern British Columbia, the most beautiful place in the world, where we are sitting about, for those that are watching internationally, the British Columbia, an absolutely beautiful province, and then, but large, we are about 500 miles north of Vancouver, 800 kilometers, and that's only the middle of the province.
Yep.
And then all around us, is nature, and don't be surprised if you encounter just outside of town or sometimes inside of town, black bears and moose and you name it. We still have all the wild here, and then at the same time we got Prince George that, relatively speaking, is a young city. I think it got incorporated in 1914. In 65, when I came here, it was called the boom town. So the normal conversation would be, when did you get here and when are you leaving? Because
absolutely, yeah.
And then what happened? It evolved and it became an amazing city that. Amazing arts and culture. You had a lot to do with that, the Symphony and other things around that. That's why that is so amazing. And then, in addition to that, we built the University of Northern British Columbia, the most popular and the best small university in all of Canada, and then the College of New Caledonia. Right behind us is we see new major swimming pool being built and all the infrastructure around us. Prince George is a city that is on the
cusp
of becoming
an urban leading light in our area. So all we need, John, is for you to cough up as much money as possible and build that Brink's Performing Arts Center.
I like that.
I do too. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think, and that's again just a question of time as well, because Prince George is going to that level and becoming a major center, or the capital of Northern British Columbia. I usually call it. And to my friends south of us, Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, I usually remind them that 75% of the gross national product of the province of British Columbia comes from northern BC.
Yes.
So do not forget it in terms of that's where it all happens. And and I think it has been a bit of a challenge, obviously, with COVID and all the other things for all of us.
Yes.
But we will get past that and we'll go on, and it becomes different. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you briefly here is that you said that, hard to imagine, but Bill is semi-retired. That means likely he talks about it, but he really doesn't do it.
Correct.
And yourself, you're still very, very active. How do you see things for you?
For us?
Going forward.
Well,
it obviously will continue because you have, your children involved and other ones involved. So it will continue.
Well, it will continue. And, my daughter-in-law, Nicole, is very involved. She's very involved with Nutcracker. She's my two lovely boys that are married, married, triple threat dancer, singer, actress type women with many, many skills to add to our collection, which was extremely nice of them, really, when it comes right down to it. So Nicole is extremely involved. Jonathan, her husband, my youngest, has a lot of abilities and writes music and scores movies and has done quite a lot of stuff outside of Prince George. What I really see happening, same thing with Matt and Anna, and hopefully for Andrew as well, is that the whole idea of a global career, being able to fly comfortably home to your family where you can afford to live in a community that is still feeling safe and allows you, even when I was growing up, I grew up in Richmond, British Columbia, which is not the same place as it is now. However, at that time, it was very small, very rural, did not have any large dance studios. So my parents had to drive me to New Westminster, which is quite a long trip. Here, you can get your kids anywhere in 10 minutes. And it makes a huge, huge difference. To their ability to flourish. So I feel that for my kids, the opportunity to be able to get their children to wherever they need to go, including grandma's house and grandpa's house, is extremely helpful for quality of life. But they can also, John can fly to Vancouver in an hour and work for Pro Show on a giant gig. And be back for the weekend. And,
no problem.
No foul, and, it can be like that. I can see a time coming when perhaps Anna is going to want to, say, fly to Edmonton and direct a play or, that I see the day coming.
Me too, no question.
That's going to be very simple.
And it's likely sooner rather than later.
In our mindset, not a difficult thing at all.
And Prince George will keep growing at will, and the Arts Center has always been in the discussion already. It was already for years and years, and that part is only a matter of time as well. I keep buying lottery tickets because I would love it to have my name on it, but I think it's going to be your name. I like it.
I do too.
Yeah, I like it. Now, both my daughters, Nicole and Christina, both were at your school when they grew up. The reason that I talk about them, because they would never forgive me if I'm sitting here talking to Judy Russell about the school and for the young people that pass through.
So many, John, so many at this point. If you consider that I did actually start teaching in Prince George with my mom in 1979. An interesting little story for you about that is my studio store manager was one of those first students in 1979.
Amazing. And that's 42 years ago. And so I still remember this.
Diana Murray, who is now Diana McKellar and has been for 35 years. And we're still little partners in crime, the two of us.
And I still remember for many, many parents and many, many families that we go to the show and that is on stage and the parents and they are so nervous and we are nervous and there it all happens and it was just quite an experience that he will never forget.
Well, give them my love, your beautiful daughters, and I have been very, very fortunate for all the support and the families that have gone through the studio. There are many, many, many people in the show this year who either grew up in the studio or who have our parents of children that grew up in
have
this,
a link to
have
it,
a
right?
link, have grandchildren in the studio, or children in the studio. There are quite a few families with dancing moms and dads with their kids in the show, and it's pretty exciting. And I guess the way that happened is because that was always what happened with us.
Yeah.
I remember Bill saying to the boys when they were sort of, why do we have to do this? And
Yeah.
Bill just said, if we were chicken farmers, you'd be out there killing chickens. So, so this is what you're doing. You are supporting your mother,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there didn't have to be that many of those conversations.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it is a wonderful way to grow up.
Yeah.
And it is a huge sense of community and family.
And
how many
giving
times
back,
do you
right?
get? How many times do you get to be a part of something where 100 people are all there with their heart in the same place?
Yeah. No question
About
that.
what they're doing. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And back to the 30 years thing. So I have Matthew Clough here. His parents still live here. His dad is a retired lawyer. And also who, oddly enough, James Clough, came out of UBC in 1980, came to Prince George, but he had hung out at Mussock at UBC, which is their theater program, musical theater program. And so James Clough was the lead in the first big show that my parents did when we got here in 1980. I played his sister. I was the dancing ingenue. I was 20. I believe Jim was 30. Almost 30. Sorry, Jimmy. Yeah, maybe. And anyway, so there's where our relationship started. I was 4 months pregnant with my first child, with our first son, Andrew. And anyway, here we are 40 years later, and his son is on stage as this accomplished and amazing ballet dancer, artist. Matthew Clough he started in my studio when he was 3 years old, and that's about 25 years ago. And he has been in Montreal for the last 5 years, I think, and he's amazing. So he grew up in the studio. In fact, Bill was his Drosselmeyer. When he was the prince in 2009, that was the last year Bill played Drosselmeyer.
Yeah.
2 years before that, there was this young man named Isaac Smith, who 2007 also was the prince that year. He went on to do the big So You Think You Can Dance Canada the very first year and made it to the top 10, and our little town of Prince George kept him in that race right till the bitter end.
Wow.
And he has had a very, very fine career in Toronto. Lots of movies, lots of national commercials, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then Nutcracker Prince 2015, 2013, Tristan Ghostkeeper, who also grew up here, all three of these lads, their families still live here.
Yeah.
He is just an amazing talent, and he is here at the moment between contracts because he's been doing movie work, television work, and cruise ships.
Yeah.
So to have him here as well is spectacular.
Beautiful, right?
So all the young ladies that grew up in the studio or are growing up in the studio are so excited. The Claras this year, the Snow Queen, it's just an amazing experience for them.
Yeah.
And my sons were Snow Kings, and Andrew was the only one that played the Prince back, I think it was 2001 or maybe even 1999. I can't remember, but there's such a legacy, and lots of people who are school teachers now who educate their kids. And my son Matt's eldest child, Henry, they're doing Nutcracker Christmas project, and he keeps showing me his Russian dance. So I'm like, maybe someday, Henry, you'll do the Russian dance for Grandma. But right now, you're just a boy soldier in the opening scene.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That sounds very good, Judy. And you know, the another thing that I was going to do is that I wanted to, you know, I wrote a book, and I think something that you should possibly think about is that I say it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, and 2 years to write it.
Ah.
It is against all odds.
Oh, that's wonderful, John.
And I
what a challenge. Oh, look,
and I
you've
signed a
signed
copy
it for
for
me.
you.
Oh, thank you.
Now, the interesting part is free, obviously, but the interesting part about it is you can see the price of the book. Maybe you tell me what it is.
You know what? I can't.
It's $25.47.
Does that say $25.47? I do not have my glasses on.
Yeah, but so this
$25.47. It is. That's a very interesting price, John.
Yeah,
what is that about?
When I came off the bus here, the Greyhound, about 2 blocks away from here in 1965, I couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul. You know, and had one set of clothes, looking for a job, didn't have any family or anybody. I counted my money at least twice or 3 times. I had $25.47, but I had a dream of building a lumber mill.
There we go.
And that's what I did.
That is amazing. And that is absolutely against all the odds, isn't it?
It is. It has been a pleasure having you and knowing you. And, you know, I wish you all the best.
Well, I wish you too. And maybe, I'm not sure what I'll call it. Perhaps it's not enchantment, damn it.
Yeah. That sounds like an appropriate one. So again, thanks, Judy, for the interview. We wish you all the best and success forward. Thanks on behalf of the whole city for what you do and have done in the past.
I've been pretty lucky.
Thank you. Our special guest today was Judy Russell, and again, this is On the Brink.